Welcome to the Process Podcast with Rod Howard, where artists, entrepreneurs, and visionaries share their stories and insights on creativity, world events, and personal journeys. Get ready to deep dive into the minds of those shaping the future. Today, we're getting the opportunity to sit down and chat with the super talented photographer, John David Pittman, about his journey in photography. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get started. I know that you're from Arkansas, but you're not from Little Rock. Where you from, man?
Man, I grew up in Hackett, Arkansas, which is just a little bitty town, South Sebastian County. No stoplights. You kind of got to be going there to go there.
I've never been to Hackett, man. What is it like?
I mean, it's just small town America, you know. I think I'm at least fifth generation Hacketonian.
Is that what they call it, a Hacketonian?
I think I was maybe a Hacketeer. Yeah, man. I mean, everybody knows everybody. It's just like every other small Arkansas town. My dad was both my parents were teachers. My dad ended up being my high school principal, which was weird and awful for a kid in a class of 28 people.
Yeah, I can only imagine, man. But the reason I asked that, though, man, how do you feel like growing up in a town like that? Like, I know with artists, I know especially like with me, growing up where I grew up, it largely influenced like my creative process. How do you feel like that's influenced you as a photographer, as a creator, growing up in that town?
That's a really good question because I didn't really, I guess, know that I could be a creative till much later in life, or really understand that I could be, which is kind of wild because my mother was the gifted and talented coordinator for K-12 in the school district. So creativity was always encouraged in our household. We always practiced creative problem solving. And Mom always said, only boring people get bored. So, and she was a very creative woman. And actually, I'm an amateur photographer. She had an old Canon AE1 35 millimeter camera that my dad gave her one year as a gift. And, I assume, I get a lot of my creativity and eye for things from her. But again, it was just kind of a hobby for her. I was a school teacher in a small rural town, not a lot of opportunities to really pursue anything out of just taking photos of flowers and butterflies and your kids and whatnot. But her photos were always really cool, and that's probably where I first kind of fell in love with the idea of photography.
Man, that's cool. I was wondering because, man, it's like it never fails. I feel like with creatives or just most people in life, it's something that it's always a way. There's an influence there. I feel like when you're younger, and somehow the universe brings you back to that point, which I think is interesting in your story because I know you said you went to UCA, and you were marketing major? What
communication major with a emphasis on public relations, minor in marketing.
And I know you did the sports thing down there.
I did. I played 2 years of baseball. Yeah.
That's crazy, man. It's, you went to college, you played baseball, did all that, and I know the camera, I feel like it came back to you by like a freak accident almost because you were working at Waymack?
Yeah, so I worked several different career jobs, industry jobs out of college. My first job out of college was managing a bar in downtown Little Rock, where, what's the old adage? Like everybody should wait tables, bartend, or drive a cab for a while, for experience, and you meet all sorts of people. And that was definitely the case for me. I was actually recruited out of the bar to come work for a guy at his political consulting firm, just because he was a regular there and we talked all the time. And he thought that I would be an asset for his company. So I did that for a while. And then, I ended up working in production with Waymack and Crew, local production house. Was mostly doing sales for them at first, putting bids together, trying to get new business. And then ended up, for the lack of a better term, working as a producer on some local smaller jobs. But it was on a larger job for a university that Dan way back, owner of the company and director, just tossed me a DSLR one day. I think it was his personal camera, and said, "Hey, can you just grab some behind the scenes set stills for the client?" And it was at that moment I was like, "Whoa, this is really cool." Like, I was just having a blast. I was running around, trying to get. How he was looking at me, like, "What are you doing?" Like, I'm laying down, looking and like trying to get fun, cool angles. And then Dan actually let me start borrowing that camera on some weekends and stuff, and just messing around with it. And then my now wife, who I was dating at the time, bought me my first DSLR for it was birthday or Christmas now, but one of those.
That's crazy.
And she always says it was the best and worst decision she ever made, giving me that camera. So, but yeah, that's kind of how I fell back in love with it. But it was for several years after that, it was still just a hobby for me before I ever thought that it could be a career.
That's crazy, man. So you go through that, the universe just hands you this camera and pretty much it sends you back down this path. At what point did that light bulb kind of go up above your head and be like, you know what? Yeah, I can make money off of this. I can make a living off of this. Like, when did that kind of happen? Did you have any specific event occur that kind of created that thought?
Yeah, so at the time, when my wife and I got engaged, I was working for a company that's changed names now, but it was called Plato Learning. It was based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. They were a educational software company, and my job was a account manager for them. I was calling on every public school district in the state of Arkansas, selling test prep kits, credit recovery type things. And my wife was working as a drug rep for Eli Lilly and teaching dance at a local dance studio every night. And when we got engaged, we both kind of looked at each other and said, "All right, we're about to start this next chapter in life together. How do we want that to look?" And we both really didn't like our corporate jobs at that point. And it was her dream from the time she could walk was to own her own dance studio. And so we did that. We both quit our corporate jobs and we launched into opening her first dance studio. And I don't recommend anybody to be planning a wedding and opening a small business in the same 6 months. It's not ideal, but we did it. And so for the first 2 years that studio was open, I worked there. I was worked in, the financials and account management, even worked behind the desk in the lobby. And at that time, I was taking a lot of photos, and we didn't have a lot of money for marketing and stuff. So I was taking all the marketing and website photos, and other people started asking me to take photos for them. And, again, it was my wife that kind of encouraged me. She recognized that I kind of had a good eye for it. And she kind of pushed me to focus on it a little more. So I kind of enrolled myself in the University of YouTube and started just studying everything I could. And it was in 2012 when I actually filed for a business license and said, I'm going to try to make some money off this thing.
Nice, man. That's crazy. And that turned into like a career that's really lasted like more than a decade. I got to like derail just to take it.
I love derail.
Man, I'm the king of derail. But no, I mean, how important, like, I know it sounds like your wife has been like really instrumental in all this and being like playing, like kind of push you in that direction and being supportive. How important would you say that is for artists or entrepreneurs to have a partner that's completely like on board with what you're doing, man?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I wouldn't say that you have to have a significant other partner, but I think whether that's a family member or a close friend or whomever, I do think it's important for creatives to have somebody in their life that believes in them. It's a hard gig, man. Like, there's super highs and lows when you're creative. It just comes with who you are. So yeah, I think it's vital to have somebody that you can lean on and that is always going to support you.
And that's awesome. So I guess going back a little bit. So man, again, you started doing, what year was that when you decided to go full time with the photo?
2012.
Man, that's crazy. Yeah. So that's like you go down this route, and then, like I said, it's over a decade of shooting. Man, you shot a lot of stuff, man. I like going through your website. Like, I still look at some of the photos you taken. Like, the one that stand out to me, I think is so dope. The one you got like Wiz Khalifa
Yeah.
on there, man. And then I've seen like the poolside photos you did,
Mhm.
and just a bunch of stuff. And then the stuff you showed me. Do you have any shoots that like stand out to you, or like I don't know? You know, every artist have like that photo that, or that, especially photographers. You have a shoot that stands out. Do you have any of those shoots that come to your mind over that 12 period, like 12?
Yeah. Yeah, I've gotten to have a lot of really amazing experiences because of the camera. I think far and away for me the top experience is getting to photograph the late Congressman John Lewis, civil rights hero. I mean, that just incredible. It's one of those people that walks in the room, and even though he's a small stature guy, he just seems 40 feet tall. You know, like when you get to photograph someone that's that important to history, that was really special. I even have like I've never ever printed a photo to hang in any of my studios or my home that I've of a person that I've taken. But I got a huge portrait of Congressman Lewis printed, and it was hanging in my studio, and it's actually hanging in my house now.
Man, can you speak to that experience a little bit? Like, just, 'cause this seemed like a pretty big occasion, man.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine the pressure is probably like high, and you probably don't have a lot of time to get that kind of shoot. Can you
Yeah.
kind of walk through that experience, kind of like getting the call and just running up there?
Yeah, well, that's actually that shoot is one I manifested myself. I actually wasn't commissioned to do that. I heard that he was going to be in town. He was stumping for now State Senator Clark Tucker, who was running for the House of Representatives at the time, and Congressman Lewis was coming in to speak at Flanders Smith to support Clark. And from my old political days, I still had some connections, and I made a couple calls, and like, hey, what do I have to do to be able to get 2 minutes, 3 minutes with Congressman Lewis to make a portrait? And thankfully, some of those connections were still intact, and it lucked out that he was going to be recording a podcast with Clark, and Charles Blake, and some other guys before he spoke, and in a room that wasn't close to where the actual event was going to be. And they said, yeah, if you'll also photograph Clark, then yeah, you can have a couple minutes with the congressman. And so it was super simple, which a lot of my portrait shoots are. We just threw up a simple gray roll of seamless, and had one strobe with a modifier set up, and just had him stand there. We were about 3 or 4 feet apart. Just chatted with him just a little bit. He gave me a few looks, and that was all I needed.
Man, that's nice. And derailing, yeah, it makes me think like when you get in those big situations with taking photos of people, you have like a limited amount of time to get in there and get what you need. You almost have you have to achieve this level of skill where you're going in and you're not thinking about it at all.
Right.
So for you, I know you said you went to like YouTube University and everything else. Can you speak to like how do you get from this point over like a relatively short time span from like getting the camera put back in your hands to developing your skill level to where you're ready in that moment and you functioning almost in this like flow state where you're not even thinking about it? Like, what was the training process like? How long did it take you to get to this point where you knew, you walk in the room, I'm that guy.
Yeah. Well, I was also lucky enough to have a mentor. When I started looking at wanting to do photography as a business, I knew that I didn't want to do retail photography. I didn't want to photograph families or weddings or babies. I wanted to photograph stuff that was going to be in magazines. It was going to be on billboards. So, I wanted to do commercial and editorial photography. But I wasn't exactly sure how to start or how to even get into it. So the thing that I figured out was I thought if I could start shooting headshots, because at the time around 2012, LinkedIn was starting to blow up. Like the idea of needing a quality headshot profile photo from a business perspective was really starting to take off. And so I thought if I could start doing that, start shooting businesses, things like that, then that's kind of a step in the right direction towards commercial photography. And when I was trying to figure out how to learn how to do that, I found a guy online by the name of Peter Hurley. And my wife bought me his instructional DVD that he had just put out. It's called The Art Behind the Headshot, I believe, was the first piece of education he'd ever done. Co-produced that with the guys at F-Stoppers. And then he was doing workshops, which he still does, called the Headshot Intensive. And he was doing one in Dallas, and I signed up and went, and just kind of wild. We just kind of hit it off and vibed, and we've been good friends ever since. And that was in 2012. And so that's one of Peter's big things is you better know the technical before your client ever gets in the room. Like, you spend hours alone by yourself, whatever, figuring out your light, figuring out your camera settings, because if you're fiddling with that stuff when your client walks in the room, you're cooked. Like, they don't trust you, right?
Yeah.
You have to be a professional always. So that I just pounded that into my head and I would spend hours and hours and hours in my own studio, my first studio space, just taking photos of myself or any friends I could get to come hang out, and so that I would know exactly what I was doing from a technical standpoint, so that I could be comfortable and focus all my energy on the person about the photograph. Because it's nervous. When you're getting your photo made, I don't care if you're the biggest celebrity in the world. It's an awkward thing to have someone point a camera at you and know that they're capturing a moment in time that people are going to see. So the more that myself as the photographer can put them at ease, talk to them like, this is feel like, don't focus on, like, if I'm not focusing on the technical stuff, they're less likely to focus on the lights and the camera. So,
man, that's a good point. I know you're talking about like the training and even going through the process, seek mentorship. Man, I think that's in a world where everybody's a photographer.
Yeah.
Everybody's they got a phone, they don't think they need a photographer. How important would you say skill is, or like, how important do you think the skill is as a photographer now to try to stand out in a world where everybody's pretty much a photographer?
Yeah, the level of photography talent in the last 5 to 10 years has just exploded. Like, there's more talented photographers out there than there ever has been at any point in time, because it's so accessible and education is so accessible. And creativity as a whole, I think, is more accepted in society. So more people are doing it. For me, it is 100% about experience and relationship. So, if you're going up for a job against somebody else, like, and they're only looking at portfolio, like, who knows who they're going to choose. But if you get a chance to get in front of those decision makers, work with them before, and try to get a job again with them, like, they're going to remember the experience they had. That they want to work with people that are professional, they want to work with people that are fun to be around, they want to work with people that can build trust quickly. And that's where that's where professional artists comes in. A lot of people in this world can make incredible images. That doesn't mean that they're great on set. That doesn't mean they're great with clients. That doesn't mean that they're good to work with in an estimate process or an invoicing process, or where, like, that's where a true professional comes in. It's understanding all aspects from A to Z of the business and pleasant to work.
And I think it's so cool that you stress that point about knowing how to work with people, having your business in mind. Because again, we live in a world right now where everybody has a phone, and then especially with AI emerging and everything else, and like, it's getting to the point like anybody could get in the game and do that. So I think it's important that you stress that force, making sure that you establish those connections with people, make sure you know your chops. But that makes me think of like another point actually. Like there's a lot of photographers out there. Like you said, it's exploding. A bunch of young photographers.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to them about pursuing a career in photography or working on their chops? You had maybe 60 seconds to get them some game, what would you say to them?
Oh, gosh. You don't know shit. All right? Like, don't walk around cocky. And I say this from experience. Like, if you're good early, that doesn't mean you're good. Okay? Like, never stop learning. Be humble. You got to keep honing your craft. Like, the minute you think you're good and you get complacent is when somebody passes you, right? Like, if you stop trying to get better every day, there's somebody else that is still trying to get better, and you're not going to be getting jobs very long. So stay humble, approach things from the mindset that you're not certain about anything, and you'll get to a point where you can be the person that knows the most in the room about what you're doing. But if you're just starting out, keep learning. I'm still learning. I mean, I've been doing this 12 years. Like, I try to learn something every day. I'm always trying to get better, trying to do something that's going to make a shot just better, you know? Like, you got to just always be learning, you know? That was another thing my mom used to always say, just keep learning.
I got another question. Yeah. I'm going to take this up a notch. So a second ago, I asked you about, like, giving advice to a younger photographer.
Mm-hmm.
I always like asking people this: what would you give? What type of advice would you give to a younger JDP thinking about being a photographer?
Start earlier. You know, I mean, I wouldn't trade any of my life experience because I think it informs everything I do as an artist. But man, I didn't. 2012, I turned 32. You know, so I didn't start this thing until I was 32. I would have loved to have learned more, when I was 22, and who knows if it would have turned out the same way. But I would have liked to have told a young JDP that he was creative and he could have a career in the creative arts. Really wanted to, that it was an option.
I ask this like kind of selfishly. I always ask people because I feel like there's always lessons in failure more so than successes. Have you run into any failures, big failures that you feel like were big learning opportunities for you that you feel like other people could benefit from knowing, that you care to share?
Big failures. Not offhand. I mean, I fail a lot, you know. I mean, I think you fail on every shoot, you know. About 10% of your photos are keepers, the ones that get selected. I remember early on getting a meeting with a creative director at an ad agency and feeling really confident and going in. Well, you know, my look was crap. Looking back on it now, but man, I was fired up about the images that were in there. Feeling good about the meeting and him just kind of casually flipping through the pages, you know, and being like, yeah, it's okay, good. And they just closed it, and he asked me what inspired and asked me what made me want to create photographs. And I had zero answer because I hadn't really thought about it. And I don't know if that classifies as a failure, but I was unprepared for that meeting. I was unprepared for that question. I didn't know yet how to advocate for my own unique value proposition. I didn't know what my unique value proposition was. I didn't know what I brought to the table that was different than anybody else. So that forced me to go back, and I even looked up the word. I was so lost after that question, I ended up like looking up the definition of inspiration and started there. And the thing that struck me there was, I think the first two words that it gave me the definition was the process by which blah, blah, blah. And so then I started thinking of inspiration as a process, and that really kind of changed the way I thought about things. So I don't know if that classifies as a major failure, but I mean, you know, I think you should fail all the time. the only way, and don't be scared of it.
Man, so piggybacking that question, if you were sitting in front of him right now and he asked you the same question, how would you answer it?
Yeah. I may still not have an answer. No, I think the thing that has driven me to make the photographs that I make over the last 10 years at least is I want the viewer of the photos to be confronted with the unavoidable humanity of the people that are in the photos. That's what I strive to do every time I point my camera at a human being. I want the people that see that photo to stop and not be able to not see that person, like really see that person.
I know this may sound a little bit redundant. I'm still play from Bandy's play, but what up, Bandy?
Bandy, shout out.
But what do you like the most about this field, man? Like, what do you like most of photography?
I think the people, and the variety of experience. When you do the job the way I've done it over the last 12 years, being a freelance commercial and editorial photographer, primarily focusing on human beings and portraiture, but you never know what the job is going to bring. You don't know who the subject's going to be. And I have just got and still get to meet such a variety of interesting human beings every time I go out to take photos. And I think that's what I enjoy the most about it, which is wild because I think I'm a little bit of a closet introvert. People think I'm an extrovert a lot, but after photo shoots, I have to spend a certain amount of like quiet downtime after being on. But I still enjoy learning about the people that I photograph and getting to have some experiences that I would have never had if it wasn't for the camera.
This is a very selfish question. I always like asking people this because this work is not easy. Like, there's shoots, like, this, man, there's shoots I'll leave and I'm punching the air literally or just, there's a certain level of frustration that you run into, I think, with just being an artist. So with you doing this, like, you got some years on me doing this, but you continuing to do this for 12 years at this point. Why do you continue to do this? What is your why at this stage in the game?
I don't want to do anything else. As frustrating as it gets at times, for a myriad of reasons. When you get to that breaking point and you think about, you and I've joked before about going to pharmacy school. A complete 180 different. When you think about things like that, I don't want to do anything else but take photos, and continue to tell stories through photos. I think that's my why, because I just can't see myself. Well, I can see myself doing other things. I don't like it. And nothing about it seems more appealing than what I get to do now. Of course, I did make a big shift going from freelance to corporate photography, working with Arkansas Children's, and which has been an enormous learning curve, which has been both frustrating and exhilarating, I think, and kind of opened my mind to what photography is and what it can be and what it can be used for.
So I guess last question, like, I know you've written multiple chapters up to this point. So if your life was a book, what would the next chapter of your book be titled? Next chapter of your book be titled, and what's next? What's in it? Needs make
good mess. That's a good. I knew you were gonna ask a question, man. I just came up with it. You just came up with that off the top of your head. Man, that's a good one. This is not what you want to hear, but I've always said if I write a book, it's going to be titled "Goats Crack Me Up," because they do. Goats are hilarious. So that's my long time. Someday I'm writing that book. I don't know that I have an answer for that, man. I think I'm in a point in my life. I'll be 44 next month. My daughter turns 12 in a couple of weeks, 2 weeks from today. My wife and I will have been married 14 years in December. And I think that right now I am probably for the first time in a long time or ever, I'm really focusing on right now. Like what is happening right now in my life and trying to enjoy and be present for what's going on. So I will think about your question, and maybe next time we hang out I can actually give you an answer, but it's not top of mind because I don't have a lot of future plans right now. I think I'm just trying to enjoy what I'm doing right now, enjoy this current challenge with work that I'm working on, and enjoy hanging out with my 2 girls and our goofy dogs, and just being not complacent and maybe not even content, but just happy right now. That's where I'm trying to be right now. I know there's plenty of next chapters, and I hope they're fun and awesome. But I don't know that I have an outline for them yet.
So where can people find you? Like, I know you already got like a billion people following you.
I'm not giving people the home address.
Like, yeah, where can they find you online, your social media?
Let's see. Instagram is at JD Pittman. If anybody's on Instagram anymore, feels like it's just memes and reels now. But I still put work on there. Still kind of a second portfolio on there. A lot of the BTS day-to-day fun stuff is on there as well. To see the work, just go to johndavidpittman.com. That's where the primary portfolio is. So probably those 2 avenues. Don't find me on X or Twitter because it's mostly just sports and political rants. And nobody needs. It's really my journal.
That'll work. Well, JDP, thank you so much.
Yeah, man.
To the podcast.
Honored.
Check out you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. First guest, man.
Hey, first forever.
Yeah, man. So if y'all enjoyed this, man, please make sure that you like this, drop a comment, share it with somebody that you think is motivated by
that
this.
Subscribe.
Yes, smash the subscribe button. Thank y'all. Till next time, man. Y'all stay encouraged. Take it easy.